139 sign.
139 off duty, 0200.
2 a.m. in the morning. Dark, desolate, quiet. He sees something in the middle of the road.
Officer down, Bluefield Road.
The shot breaks the silence of the night.
I remember asking, like, what happened?
I wish you could tell me what the hell happened here.
He was ambushed.
They disappeared into the night.
No one could see.
In May of 2013, Jason Ellis was living the small-town American dream. He'd ended a baseball career, instead choosing to raise a young family, and had become a beloved police officer in Bardstown, Kentucky, in the heart of bourbon country.
Rural Nelson County, Kentucky, 40 miles south of Louisville, is rolling farmland and long, winding roads. And home to a small town, Bardstown.
We're one of the oldest towns in Kentucky. Bardstown was settled in 1780 by people from Northern Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Maryland.
Bourbon has always been king in Nelson County.
We've been making bourbon here since the 1790s.
Bourbon has always been a huge economic engine in the community, and even more so today than 40 years ago.
But today, amidst towering rickhouses and distilleries churning out whiskey, residents of Bardstown and the rural surroundings of Nelson County are haunted, spooked by the unknown.
We tell people you don't have to worry about it. You can walk around at night, there's enough street lights and things. And after this started happening, we quit telling people that because we had no idea where the danger was going to come from.
For over 50 miles, the Bluegrass Parkway slices rural Nelson County into two halves, running from southwest to northeast corners across the map. And on exit ramp 34 of that highway is where the more recent story of Bardstown's mystery begins. In the pre-dawn hours of May 25, 2013, a Bardstown police officer pulled off the Bluegrass Parkway at exit 34. On the way home from his shift, 33-year-old Jason Ellis.
I've often told people Jason was a Chiefs cop. He loved what he did and was very dedicated to it.
Jason Ellis grew up in a suburb of Cincinnati in Batavia, Ohio, with his parents and his two sisters. He played baseball pretty much his entire life. And he also had the opportunity to play for the Cincinnati Reds minor league team in a few different cities. That was a dream come true for him, to be able to play semi-pro ball.
You wouldn't know he wasn't from here. He just fit right in. People liked him. Fell in love with a Kentucky girl. She's got to come home. So that's how he ended up here.
We met through mutual friends, and it was on Valentine's Day of 2001. There was a big group of us, and he just started talking to me, and I was like, it's cute, So when we left, the girls and I, when we left, he had asked for my number from her. From that point on, we were inseparable. On our very first date, official date. My mom was going to be traveling through, and she called me like right before he was going to pick me up, and she said, I'm going to be there, like I want to take you and your roommate out to eat. I said, well, actually, I have my first date tonight with, and she's like, what?
I said, oh, well, maybe I should go with you. And she laughed and she says, well, let me ask.
So I had to call him and, ask if it was okay if my mom went. And he was like, yeah, that's fine.
I went along with them on their first official date.
At dinner, I didn't say a lot. My mom, she grilled him pretty good.
I did all the talking. Had to grill him really good, and we laughed about it later.
I remember him getting up to go to the bathroom, and I told her, I was like, I'm going to marry him. And she's like, you don't even know him? I was like, I'm going to marry him.
I didn't really know what to think about Jason at the time. I was like, this is concerning. This is not your typical date. This is getting serious on the first date. From that point on, it was Jason, Jason, Jason.
His first dream was to play baseball. He, was pretty focused on that.
In 2002, Jason signed a contract with the Cincinnati Reds, and for 2 years his dream of being a professional baseball player was alive and well. But in 2005, not long after marrying Amy, Jason Ellis's baseball dream would be shelved.
We had gotten married and got pregnant, and then he had also lost his dad. That was pretty tough on him. I was having complications with my pregnancy, and so him being away through all of that, he just made the decision that it was time to make the transition. He wanted to be home with me and our son at the time, so he quit.
It was hard for Jason because that was his love, was baseball. That's the kind of Jason that we become to know and love because he's going to do the right thing. He knew this is the right thing. I need to be home.
He decided he was going to give up baseball and become a police officer. That's when he became a police officer for the Bardstown Police Department.
People liked him. The only people who disliked him were those that he arrested, and that's usually the way that falls.
He was one of Chief McCubbin's best officers. He recently had started working in the drug unit and had a canine partner, Figo.
He's very interested in the drug activity, and he and Figo, his four-legged partner, did a lot of good when it came to drugs. But he's very passionate about policing in general.
He was starting to make his way into cleaning up the drugs in Nelson County, specifically in Bardstown.
He's been described as a little goofy, but he loved being a dad and being a husband, and he loved police work.
And it earned him accolades by his second year on the job.
Jason joined the police force in 2006, and by 2008, he'd already been named Officer of the Year. He was, as far as I know, really liked by all of his fellow officers.
He loved that small town feel. He loved Kentucky, the countryside, the woods. He loved to hunt. He was truly that all-American boy.
That life as a father, husband, and protector would all come to an abrupt halt in 2013. In those pre-dawn hours of May 25th, on exit ramp 34 of the Bluegrass Parkway.
I heard a knock at the door, and I'm thinking, he must have forgot his keys.
Jason Ellis's story is the all-American story. He was the baseball player, the nice guy, the small town guy who met his college sweetheart and they settled down, and he became the protector of Bardstown, Kentucky. May 24th at about 5:40 p.m., Jason's on duty, but he also coaches his son's little league team. So he shows up for his son's game. He shows up in uniform. Amy's there.
He met us up there. He was working that night, so I didn't get to really talk to him because it was Memorial Weekend. It was super busy.
He gets a call over his radio that he's got to go. This would be the last time that Amy and Jason would see each other.
I tried to call when the game was over. He didn't answer, so I knew he was busy. He did call me at some point, and I was already asleep, and then we just had a brief conversation of, it's been really busy tonight. I love you. I love you too. And that was it.
Just after midnight, Jason gets a call from dispatch that there is a guy at the hospital that is drunk and disorderly, has been injured, needs to be picked up and taken to jail. Drives the 5 minutes to Nelson County Jail, drops him off, does some paperwork. That's pretty much the end of his shift at that point. Jason leaves the jail. It's 1:59 and he calls off duty.
139, fine.
139 off duty, 0200.
He gets on Bluegrass Parkway. He gets to exit 34. Exit 34 winds around really tightly. So when you're on Bluegrass Parkway, you actually can't see the whole exit until you're on it. There's really no overhead lighting in that area either. So the only way that you're illuminating that exit ramp that turns really sharply is by your headlights. When he starts to go around the bend, he sees something in the middle of the road.
He was stopped by debris, brush in the roadway.
So he turns on his cruiser lights to alert anyone who might be coming off the exit at this point. Gets out of his car and goes over to pick up this debris that's in the road. He gets out wearing full uniform, wearing this Kevlar vest. He bends over to pick up the debris, and that's when the first shot happens. The shot from a 12-gauge shotgun breaks the silence of the night. He is hit multiple times in his Kevlar vest. He's also hit underneath his arm where his Kevlar vest kind of dips.
He never had an opportunity to draw his weapon.
He's completely caught off guard, and the word that has been most used in his case is ambushed, and that's exactly what happened to him. He was ambushed. A final third shot rings out, this time hitting him in the temple, the scalp, and his right jaw. With a shotgun, it's not a single bullet coming out, it's spraying pellets. So when it fires out of the shotgun, it releases all those pellets out.
It was probably over fairly quickly. And then they disappeared into the night.
Hello, hello. Officer down, Bluefield Road.
A 19-year-old man and his mother, as well as a child and another gentleman in the back seat, pull up around this exit, and they see these flashing lights. She jumps out of the car, gets into Jason's cruiser, and gets on his radio to call dispatch.
Oh my God, are they coming? Are they coming?
Another man just getting off work from a local distillery pulls off the exit ramp. He sees the brake lights in front of him and obviously the blue flashing lights ahead of them. He jumps out of his car and he goes and checks on Jason.
The police car is sitting in the middle of the road with the lights on. There's a tree across the road, and I didn't know what it was, and I got out and I went up there and looked, and it's him. I believe somebody's hit him.
Can you about the status of the officer? Is he conscious?
I believe he's dead.
Okay, can you tell if he is breathing?
No, sir, he is not breathing. Body temperature is cold.
They always talk about the 3 a.m. phone call. Well, I literally got that 3 a.m. phone call. And I remember when I looked at my phone, it said Nelson County Dispatch. And I just thought, oh, this isn't going to be good. I remember jumping in my car and taking off. My phone rang while I was en route, and it was one of the officers who was on the night shift. He was very upset. And he said, Chief, they've killed him, he's dead. It's like those dreams when you can't run fast enough. I just thought, man, will this car not go any faster? I got there, pulled up to the ramp. I just remember getting out of my car and it was eerily quiet. The sheriff had already made it. He said, he's gone. I said, what in the hell happened? And nobody knew. I just remember going under the tape, walking over, and I just kind of squatted down. I just remember putting my hand on his knee, and I just said to myself, I said, buddy, I wish you could tell me what the hell happened here. And I just looked and I'm thinking, my God, I got a young guy in his 30s who's been shot and killed, and we don't even know where to start. Obviously I got emotional, started tearing up a little bit, cried a little bit, and then I thought, okay, you're the chief, be the chief.
Chief McCubbin was faced with one of the most difficult things he had ever taken on as police chief, notifying Jason's wife, Amy.
We gotta go knock on that door, so, excuse me. I cannot let her hear this on the news. And by then it's 3:30 or 4 in the morning, so I said, get over there right now.
I heard a knock at the door. When I answered, it wasn't him. It was the chaplain and another officer. Obviously knew something was wrong. And they told me there had been an accident.
My assistant chief at the time, I think he gave it away. They knocked, and she was coming to the door. He started crying.
I remember asking, what happened? The rest of the night was just complete chaos. My mom just lived down the street, and so the other officer went to get her.
I was in a sleep, and I come to the door, and he said, they killed my boy. They killed my boy. I just ran out of the house. Ran. We both did. I got there to the porch as the chaplain was walking inside.
He's like, you don't understand anything. And I just remember, thinking how am I going to do this? How am I going to live without him? How am I going to raise the boys without him?
I couldn't believe what I was hearing, that it was an ambush, a plot in a spot that is so near home.
Investigators scoured the ramp behind me for almost 12 hours as they searched for evidence. It was on this ramp early this morning where Officer Jason Ellis was found.
At some point during the morning, KSP commander came down and said, I think we found a spot where apparently the shooter was.
When you're driving off of exit 34 and you take the turn around, it's essentially two cliffs. The exit itself is carved out of this rock formation.
It was up on the rock wall above him where they found evidence that that's where the shots came from.
And so on the side where it's believed he was shot from, it's a pretty tall, overarching cliff, if you will, stone.
Everything that they found was exactly that. Big bushes, half trees, whatever they were, where someone had flattened or whatever, had been there for a minute, and a couple of the shells, that's where they were found.
Depending on where shooter or shooters would be, it would be very easy to conceal oneself, specifically this time of night at 2 a.m. in the morning. It's dark, it's desolate, it's quiet.
There's absolutely no cameras anywhere around there. People are like, did they ping the cell towers? Yes, they pinged. There wasn't much there to begin with. There were no locations that they could go, hey, do you happen to have a Ring camera?
There was another wrinkle at the scene, though.
And this debris has been described to me as being freshly cut tree limbs and very purposefully placed across this exit ramp.
It did not come from right there.
In May of 2013, Bardstown, a small Kentucky city in rural Nelson County, was reeling from the shocking murder of police officer Jason Ellis, a husband and father of 2 small children, who had been gunned down on an exit ramp in the middle of the night.
Things came to a standstill the day of his funeral. It was as though the entire county was mourning.
I'm going to say 90% of those people didn't know him, but they were standing there honoring him.
It was the biggest outpouring of emotion I think I've seen in my lifetime.
One image that just struck me was something that symbolized the absolute bond that Jason had with his canine partner. That image of Figo putting his paw on top of Jason's casket, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it.
Jason, I know you're here. Just like you ended all your conversations with me, you're my chief. You're my chief. And I am your chief, Jason. But you are now our hero. I never thought I'd be standing here at this damn funeral and still don't have an idea of what happened. I should know. We should know. They should know.
And some of the questions about how this happened focused on that debris in the road.
And this debris has been described to me as being freshly cut tree limbs and very purposefully placed across this exit ramp.
It turns out that debris was not from the area.
KSP, of course, collected them all, ran DNA on everything, hoping maybe that person didn't have a glove on, so they knew it had been brought in, but from where?
They were trying to find out where that debris may have come from, which may have provided a clue as to the identity of the attacker or attackers.
Kentucky State Police haven't released the results of whether that debris did in fact have DNA, but at 2 a.m., the ramp on exit 34 appeared to give cover to an attacker or attackers and raised a number of possibilities about a potential getaway route.
It would be just as simple for that person or persons responsible to then not only conceal what they've done, but leave the scene just as easily.
At the top of the ramp is an intersection with a two-lane country road that runs north and south, and over the Bluegrass Parkway.
Once you go all the way up around that exit turn, there's a main two-lane rural highway right there. Someone could have picked them up.
At the top of that ramp to the left was a home, and that person's field ran alongside the ramp and backed up to the actual freeway. They said they never heard a thing.
There's also a huge field behind this. So if you're perched up on where the cliff area is, you can very easily then run into the darkness of that field to wherever you needed to go.
The geography of exit 34 presents a couple of possible scenarios. Scenario 1, the lone gunman scenario. The shooter parks a car nearby, walks to the ridge above the ramp, commits the crime, and then walks back to the car and leaves the area. Scenario 2, which would require more than one person. The shooter is dropped off, walks to the same ridge, commits the crime, and walks back to be picked up. And Scenario 3, the shooter walks to the ridge from an unknown location, commits the crime, and leaves the scene by foot, with no car or vehicle to be seen by passers-by. All three scenarios allowing for a swift escape, and varying theories on what happened.
There's no way one person. There had to be multiple people. This was very well planned and thought out.
KSP were thinking it more than likely was more than one person because of the layout. But I think as time has gone on, I don't think that's so much theory. Could have been just one person. Stopped, unloaded it, jumped back in, drove to the top of the ramp, parked, walked down, and set up.
They could have went in a field by foot or by four-wheeler. I don't think it got on a road. You wouldn't want anyone to ever be able to spot a vehicle of any kind.
Whether it was a car waiting for you, someone else waiting for you, or back to your home, wherever that is. So the idea of someone lying in wait for someone, Jason, anyone to pull off that exit, get out of their car to move this debris is very possible to conceal.
What also became an early point of focus for police, Jason's work rooting out drugs in Nelson County.
I do remember asking him, do you ever worry like that you'll make somebody mad?
Officer Ellis was tragically killed on May the 25th of last year. He was 33 years old. Officer Ellis was killed when he was en route home following his shift.
A year after his death, the story of Officer Ellis had reached the floor of the United States Senate.
The killer or killers opened fire from a nearby hilltop, shooting him multiple times and killing him instantly. It is no exaggeration to call what happened to Officer Ellis an assassination.
As one of the officers tasked with putting a dent in the drugs that came through Nelson County, discussion about who had pulled the trigger after 2 a.m. on exit 34 naturally pointed towards his police work.
I think that belief came out early because of being the canine officer and his in drugs and all. We have had a drug problem here for some time.
I do remember asking him, do you ever worry like that you'll make somebody mad? And he's like, no, and he didn't share a lot of details with me because I guess he didn't want me to worry about things like that.
A lot of his arrests were the small-time dealers, the local dealers.
They were really kind of low-level arrests. There was nothing that indicated someone was retaliating for taking down a big drug kingpin in Bardstown or Nelson County.
Jason wasn't in the middle of a circle of something. Most of his were street level, maybe next level up busts, but there was no syndicate group.
For a year, investigators had sifted through his prior arrests.
They went through every arrest he ever made, crisscrossed names of those he arrested, and nothing clicked.
There's no one, and there was nothing in his job or in his personal life that made any sense as to why someone would want to target Jason.
If it had something to do with him citing somebody or arresting him for drugs, did that person just snap over that? Was it something syndicated? Did he get into something that he didn't even know he was involved in?
We really don't know if Jason Ellis was the actual target of this ambush, but one has to wonder, with this being the normal route, the normal time, albeit he was in a different cruiser.
Officer Ellis was not in his usual canine patrol vehicle. He was driving what's known as a pool car, which is one of the extra spares they have. There's always been questions about, well, how did the attackers know that that patrol car, since it wasn't his normal vehicle, that he was driving it?
This was his normal route. Every 2 a.m., this is where he would come. The idea that it could have just been any police officer, I'm not sure how many other police officers were signing off duty at 2 a.m. and taking that exact same exit every single night.
Was it intended for him? Was it intended for the first person who stopped, civilian or otherwise? Was it a message to the entire department, or was it for him specifically?
When you hurt somebody here, it's not just an immediate family, it's the Bardstown family, Nelson County family.
With the tragic murder of Jason Ellis, the hurt on Bardstown and greater Nelson County was only beginning.
There's been a lot of conjecture about connecting Jason's death with the other murders in the community.
I had to start planning my 33-year-old husband's funeral while coming to grips with the reality that all of our hopes and dreams had been taken from me. The life that Jason and I had planned was gone.
The 2013 murder of Jason Ellis, a father, husband, baseball coach, and police officer, had left his widow Amy terrified, with 2 young sons.
How long did that fear last?
Years. I was confident that there would be an arrest. You know, they would find who did it. Then more and more time kept going by, and that realization kind of started sinking in after a while. Eventually, I couldn't handle the amount of fear that I felt and not feeling safe.
Nighttime, it's scary. You don't know why this happened.
I did not take that exit for months. I would go the long way or whatever to avoid that.
While Jason Ellis's family waited for an arrest and answers, Bardstown would be traumatized again.
So we start with Jason Ellis, and then the next year we have Samantha and Kathy Netherland.
In April of 2014, Kathy Netherland, a Bardstown school teacher, and her teen daughter Samantha were brutally murdered in their own home, and their killer remains at large.
The following year, Crystal Rogers goes missing. She still hasn't been found.
Crystal Rogers, a Bardstown mother of 5, was reported missing, and her car was found the same day on the shoulder of the Bluegrass Parkway.
The year after she goes missing, her father, Tommy Ballard, gets shot while hunting.
Tommy Ballard, The father of missing mom, Crystal Rogers, was shot and killed by an unknown gunman while getting out of his truck in a field adjacent to the Bluegrass Parkway, 10 miles away from exit 34, where Jason Ellis was killed.
To me, how does a father get shot and killed whose daughter has gone missing a year earlier not be connected in some way?
I think everyone realizes that Crystal and Tommy is related. The Netherland family a couple years ago said, we didn't know the officer, we did not know Crystal.
In 2019, Kathy Netherland's sister, Stacy, told the Kentucky Standard newspaper, quote, "It defies coincidence that you can have 3 unsolved crimes in a row in the same small town in America. But we can reassure people that Kathy and Samantha had no ties to Jason Ellis, Crystal Rogers, or Tommy Ballard."
It's hard not to look at these cases and being in a small town where everyone knows everyone to not think they've got to be connected in some way.
We went from Jason to Netherlands to Crystal's dad. I mean, it was just one right after the other. It's a huge cloud of uncertainty around us.
To this point, nothing is connected. Now, I say that only knowing what knowledge I knew when I left. Still in contact to some degree with KSP investigators, but nothing so far has clicked that put them all together.
In interviews about the Crystal Rogers disappearance and Tommy Ballard murder, authorities aren't yet ready to make connections.
Right now, there's just no facts that says that they are connected.
We're looking collectively at all of the cases in Bardstown. I can't say conclusively if these are linked or if they're not linked. Solving one of the investigations could potentially open up the door to solve some of the other murders that have happened in the area.
If there was any connection at all to a serial killer, we'd probably accept that better than we do the bits and pieces we have. There's just no connection here.
I believe Jason's case is Jason's case. It's not intertwined.
Have you ever considered or thought that there was any connection between your husband's death and any of the other things that have happened there?
That's a tough one. Especially in the beginning, no. Maybe there's a possibility. I don't know.
While the search for an answer to the Jason Ellis murder is elusive, his family has their own ideas.
There's only one way that it could have happened.
For years now, Bardstown, Kentucky, the world's bourbon capital, has been seeking answers to a string of unknowns. Unknowns that began in May of 2013 with the murder of Officer Jason Ellis.
Do you think that Jason's killer will be caught?
Yes, I do.
I have faith in the people that are working this case.
It might be a long time. It might be years.
The answer's right there, somewhere. That person that stood up and walked across the top of that ledge. I just hope I'm around to see it, you know.
There's only one way that it could have happened. It would take several people involved. It would take somebody who knew that area, who lived here, knew it, had help, had a very, very good reason to do it.
I would urge anyone that has any information to come forward. The boys, especially the older that they get, they want answers. I want answers. I know his family and his friends want answers.
We picked this place to live. Jason fell in love with it, and my daughter, we wanted them safe. and this happens, this plot, this ambush, and nobody knows anything.
And I know that the last day that I was chief here, when I was retiring, I went out there. And I just stopped for a few minutes, turned on my blue lights, got out, and recommitted to Jason, if he was listening, that I'm leaving, but I'm not gonna give up. I'm gonna do what I can do from wherever I land.
Do I want an arrest? Yes. Do I want justice? Yes, 100%.
You kill a police officer, I hope we kill you back. And I stand 100% with that. If whoever did this to my officer is ever found and they decide to take it on, I hope the last thing we see is right off the front side of our barrel, them dropping. I mean that 100%. I don't waver with that thought.
This is a final call for Unit 139 Adam, Officer Jason Ellis. Officer Ellis served the Bardstown Police Department and the citizens of Bardstown with honor, integrity, and distinction. Unit 139 Adam is out of service. He has gone home. May he rest in peace.
Investigators say the search for his killer is as fervent today as it was in the hours after he was killed on that exit ramp. The Kentucky State Police and the FBI ask anyone with any information to call 1-800-CALL-FBI. I'm Paul Holes. This is Real Life Nightmare.
Mm-hmm.